So we're talking about the
you
new.
basically like just saw this, right?
I just saw it, like it literally. Well, we've been doing the show now for about an hour and 30 some odd minutes. So an hour and 30 some odd minutes ago, I just finished watching it. So we're talking about episode 7, The Reckoning of the Mandalorian, obviously on Disney Plus. Um, this Do you want me to talk about my initial impressions first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Um, I I like this episode and I hate this episode. I thought it was a good episode of the show for me personally, and I liked a lot of what the show did, and was I liked it, but then I hated where it left the show. I guess is the best way to put it. Like I liked it, but I hated what it kind of showed us in a sense. Um, that was my initial impressions. Eric, what were your initial impressions of this particular episode?
Well, I was pretty much blown away by it. Um, I've been critical a lot of the Mandalorian as a series, even talking about the previous episode, The Prisoner. I had plenty of criticism to put on that, although I thought the episode overall was pretty good. But this episode blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. It's exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I want from storytelling. Because what I really liked about it, what was so powerful to me about it, was that we finally had an episode where so many elements that we had seen in previous episodes actually came together. Literally came together. And that's what I like to see in my storytelling, especially in a series like this, where clearly we're supposed to be going somewhere. We don't know exactly where we're going. I've made my predictions, but a lot of these episodes have been what I called side quests. They have very little to do with the overarching story, as I see it.
Right.
And this one kind of just took that all away. I mean, as far as my criticisms, because so many of the elements that we were given in previous episodes are now relevant.
Right.
I wasn't a big fan of the episode Sanctuary, but now we got a big payoff from Sanctuary, and that's the kind of thing I wanted to see. That's the kind of thing I've been craving, was to see a payoff. And now I'm kind of like, okay, I wasn't that into Cara Dune before, but now I'm a lot more into her because now I feel like she's relevant to the bigger story, to the more important story, to the relevance of Baby Yoda and all that, and where Baby Yoda really fits into all this. Because I've said it a million times, I'm a huge Baby Yoda fan. I'd be fine with a Baby Yoda series. This Baby Yoda, gets into the ship and takes off and has his own little adventures. I'd be fine with that. Not to say I hate the Mandalorian. I think the Mandalorian's cool too, but I like Baby Yoda, and I just think it's really cool to see literally all these characters put together that we've seen in all these previous episodes, and finally see them together as a group, as a team, working together on this problem of how do we save the Baby Yoda? Because ultimately, the Mandalorian knows if he continues the way that he's going to be hunted for the rest of his life. And there's no place that's going to be safe for the Baby Yoda until he resolves the situation. So that's what I really liked. I really liked this coming together of all these different plot elements, specifically of these characters that we've seen in the previous episodes, and now they're relevant again. So that's what I really liked.
Now, I since we're going to talk about spoilers, because we're in the spoiler part. What I already said there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this episode. So if you're still listening or watching, this is on you. If you haven't seen it, that's just going to say, because I mentioned I loved this episode and then I didn't like this episode. What I mean by I didn't like this episode is I hated where this episode left our characters, because they're in a world of hurt, like big time world of hurt. Like, how in the hell are they getting out of this? So, and then we see one of the characters that I've actually come to like, the Ugnaught. What was his name? Was it Quill or Quile or something like that? It looks like he might be dead. Like that was like I was like, holy cack! Like when I saw them, when I saw them, the general plot. Those of you who have seen this, basically the Carl Weathers character, who's the leader of the bounty hunting guild on this particular sector of space or whatever, contacts the Mandalorian and pitches him on this idea that, hey, if you come back, there's more Imperials here than before. They've kind of taken over my city. I don't like this. They're affecting our ability to get work done and to get paid. We need to get them out of here. So if you come back and you let me pretend to give this Imperial warlord the prize that he's after, and then you can in turn just pull out your gun and kill him, and then that way I get my planet back. You're not going to have to worry about the Imperials continuing to pursue you because this is the main guy who's after you. So once he's dead, you're good. And then, of course, the Mandalorian shows up, and along the way, he goes back and he gathers these different individuals he feels like he can trust. And I thought this was good because it showed that the Mandalorian has learned from his mistakes. He knows that he needs backup. But more importantly, I think he knew that he needs some people that he feels that he can trust to also help take care of the child, the baby Yoda. Like he needs someone, he needs people that are going to help keep an eye and protect the child, because the kid has a tendency to wander into danger, right? So he knew that he needed to put together kind of his own crew. And I like the fact that he put his own crew together. And then they go back to, I think the planet's name is Navarro. They go there. Of course, things don't go sideways. It's a double cross. And then it turns into not quite a double cross, but basically our heroes, Quill appears to be dead. And when I saw them walking into the city, and I saw speeder bike scouts outside of the city, like checkpointing people, I was like going, this is not going to be good, because if they've got speeder bikes and they're biker scouts, you know what I mean? Like if they have to make a run for it, I hope they can find something fast, because I was like,
yeah, these things are not fast that they're riding.
Yeah.
These things aren't fast at all.
And it's one of those things that's like...
By the way, do you know what these things are from? Did you catch what these things are from?
No, I did not.
They're from the Battle for Endor.
Oh, okay.
That's where these creatures come from. I can't remember what they're called. I want to keep calling them dewbacks because what they look like. But these are from the Battle from Endor. If you remember the Battle for Endor, they have these raiders that are very much like the raiders in Sanctuary. In fact, I'm wondering if they're the same species. And they actually ride these things. Okay. So they're straight from the Battle for Endor. I didn't realize it until later, and I'm a huge Battle for Endor fan. In fact, I'm wondering why it's not on Disney Plus. But yeah, that's where these things come from, and they're very slow. They're very, very slow.
Well, what was interesting too, to talk about fun callbacks, did you notice that when the Imperial was the Grand Moff or whatever shows up, and his stormtroopers show up and they get out of the did you notice it was the same troop transport that was like a part of the Kenner Star Wars line, until he pulls up and the stormtroopers start popping out of it. So, well, anyhow, for some reason, when I saw that they had biker scouts, I was worried. Like immediately when I saw biker scouts on the outside of the city, I was like, okay, something has definitely changed. I don't know if I'd feel as comfortable walking into this situation as they're pretending to be. Because that already, to me, seemed like a bit of a paradigm shift. Because before, it felt like a bunch of just random rogue stormtroopers. I mean, they could just be people wearing stormtrooper armor. I mean, they could just be gangsters, you know what I mean? And not real stormtroopers. But when I saw those speeder bike scouts outside of the city, I was like going, okay, for some reason to me, this feels like a new level, a new threat. And then when everything goes sideways on them, Holy cow! What was your reaction when all of you saw the Death Troopers and then all the Stormtroopers started showing up? What was your reaction to that?
Well, it was the previous scene right before that or the previous exchange right before that really shocked me, because we see the I guess I'll just call him the Imperial officer from the previous episodes, the one who initially had made the deal with the Mandalorian to find the child. We see him back, and obviously he's got a lot more muscle this time. He's got a lot more stormtroopers, and the group is obviously very concerned about that, because initially they were told, you're going to have to take out like 4 stormtroopers, because he usually travels with 4 stormtroopers, and even just in the room he has more stormtroopers than that. So already they're kind of like, okay, this is not what we were prepared for. We're not prepared to deal with this. And what ends up happening is the Imperial officer, or the Imperial warlord, maybe we'll call him that, he has to take a call, which the calls, are the little hologram things. And it's this character that I have up, the Moff. And he's talking to him about, basically whether he has the child or not. And he's saying, yeah, I've got him. Clearly, he knows that he doesn't, and that he's been, hoodwinked, and he kills him. He kills him, and he kills all the stormtroopers that are with him.
Yeah.
And I'm really wondering if they're going to explain that. I don't think we're going to get an explanation for that in one episode. We'll see. But that was just like, I was shocked by that, because I was like, wow, that seemed unnecessary. Why did he do that? But he did, and specifically it was the Death Troopers that did it. So they killed all the stormtroopers. They killed this Imperial warlord, and then we get this crazy scene of, like you talked about, the troop transport coming up, which I thought was kind of interesting, because I remember for years and years. In fact, I think even like within the last couple months, I've heard people talk about how that troop transport was always kind of cool, but it was kind of funny because it was never in the movies. It was just kind of a cool thing that Kenner came up with that was never in the movies. And now they put it in The Mandalorian, and it looked really cool the way they did it and everything. And now you have this massive group of stormtroopers along with Death Troopers, and we have the appearance of this new character, the Moff, who clearly is a much bigger player in all this stuff than anybody we've seen before. It's a pretty shocking scene. I'm very curious if they're going to explain why he would have killed, the other Imperial, and what their roles were. Obviously this guy's a Moff. We still don't really know who the other character was. We kind of assume he was an Imperial officer, maybe a governor. We don't know. And I don't know if we're ever going to know. But it was definitely shocking to me. I was just like, man. So, what was that all about? Why is he killing like his own men? It just seemed kind of unnecessary. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they actually address that or not. If he was just simply saying that the guy was incompetent and he's getting rid of him, that kind of a thing. I was shocked by it. I was absolutely shocked. And so were the characters, obviously. The characters know that they're in a world of hurt right now. It doesn't look very good for them. And of course, what they were trying to do is get Quill. It's Quill, right?
Yeah.
Try to get Quill to get back to the gunship, because the Mandalorian said once you initiate the defense protocols on the gunship, it should be fine. You guys shouldn't have any problems. So it was kind of that race for him on the very slow-moving creature,
Right.
with the speeder bikes coming after him, trying to get to the ship. One thing that confused me, I don't know if you picked up on this or not, he's very close to the ship when he's apparently killed. Very close. He's like steps away.
Right.
What the hell is the IG unit doing? That was one of the most pleasant surprises for me in this show, in this episode, was the return of the IG unit, because I thought the IG unit wasn't used very well in terms of like, a one and done. I was really glad to see him come back. In fact, I remember you had theorized based on some stuff you had heard that the Mandalorian was going to repair the IG unit, and they were going to be like a team,
Right.
And it turned out that it was Quill that repaired the IG unit and has been using him as a as sort of a servant. And I thought the return of the IG unit was actually a really pleasant surprise for me. But it's like, what's the IG unit doing when Quill dies? Because he's in the ship, right?
Well, I have a fear that, and I'm thinking, because I thought the reveal was going to be is that when they showed Quill on the ground and it looked like he was dead and his creature he was riding was dead, I thought what we were going to see is we're going to get a pull away shot, and it was going to be the IG unit standing there with a blaster. And then, you know what I mean? We were going to realize that the IG unit had gone back to its original programming. It betrayed him. And then we see the speeder bike scouts pick, the child or Baby Yoda up. Then the question was going to be, okay, did he kill Baby Yoda too? And they're just taking the body back? Or like, did he just kill Quill and they've captured him? Or, you know what I mean? Because it was a pretty shocking ending to this. I was kind of on this is one of the better episodes because I was definitely on the edge of my seat. Man, I hate the way this episode ended. But I really liked that reveal, the Grand Moff and all his troops, and then the TIE fighter comes in and it lands on the ground and he gets out, and just it was cool. I was like, okay, this is cool, and it was fun too for me. It felt like the old school Empire was back, like they're back, they're in force, so it'd be interesting to see. Now, one of the things they talked about with this episode, or I had heard about this episode, part of the reason that they did this episode on Wednesday is somehow this was going to connect some sort of way, or there was going to be something that had something to do with Rise of Skywalker. Now, Rise of Skywalker spoilers. We told you at the beginning we're going to be talking about spoilers, so if you definitely don't want to hear this, but are you okay if we do a little bit of speculation talk?
I'm always good with speculation talk.
Right, I know. I'm just checking. Gives other people an opportunity to click away.
I don't shy away from the speculation or predictions or any of that stuff.
Well, here's the thing. I know that something in Rise of Skywalker has to deal with the idea that there are Imperial zealots that have basically brought Palpatine back from the dead. Okay? And that's why he's going to have a role in this last film. That basically everything that was supposed to happen in the First Order hasn't gone the way they wanted it. And this group, which I assume would be like the mysterious, leaders of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you're familiar with the Marvel films. But anyhow, they decide that at some point, this group of Imperial zealots basically have Palpatine resurrected and brought back from the dead. But what we saw with Baby Yoda, or the child in this episode, it seems pretty clear that they're hoping to use him to help resurrect Palpatine. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, we've speculated on that. That's something that I've said on our show that's something that I highly believe is possible, that the Baby Yoda is going to be used. The way I put it is as essentially as a battery to resurrect the Emperor. That was my speculation from the beginning, actually. So,
well, here's the thing, though. How much damage is going to be done to this show if Baby Yoda doesn't show up in the next episode?
In the next episode?
Yeah, the last episode.
Well, Baby Yoda is going to be in the next episode. I can almost guarantee that.
Well, I wonder
whether he survives. Whether he survives the next episode is the real question.
Yeah, that'd be such a huge mistake. I wonder. I wonder where this show is going, because I know they have a season 2 lined up, and like, for example, we know that Rise of Skywalker can't end this way, but for some reason in my mind, what I thought was going to happen is this was going to put the Mandalorian on a quest to basically get the child or Baby Yoda back, and that he would probably show up at some point towards the end of Rise of Skywalker with the rebel fleet. He'd be very instrumental in the battle, and the movie would end with the Mandalorian finally being reunited with the child. And he runs over and he gives the Mandalorian a hug, and the Mandalorian says, "I'm sorry, I've been looking for you for decades. I finally found you." And that's how the movie would end. That they're reunited. And they're going to go off and have adventures together again.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that's not happening.
I know. Wouldn't that be a fun ending, though? That'd
be a great
cool.
ending. That's why I can almost guarantee you that's not happening.
Yeah,
that's not happening.
So anyhow, but it was weird because I thought this was going to directly connect into Rise of Skywalker in some way, and I felt like it. I mean, if you've been keeping up with spoilers and speculating, maybe it kind of does, but in all reality, it does not. It doesn't connect to Rise of Skywalker at all.
In fact, I've put out several feelers out there. Like I've responded to several people that are talking a lot about Rise of Skywalker, and people that are going to go watch it tomorrow. People that have watched it, I've reached out to people that have seen it, and I've been asking them, is there a tie-in to The Mandalorian? Is there some tie-in? Because that's what I thought. We talked about this. I thought for sure the reason that they were doing The Mandalorian on Wednesday was because there's a direct tie-in from this episode, not necessarily the next episode, by the way, this episode specifically to the Rise of Skywalker. And whatever it might have been, I didn't see it. And nobody's talking about it. So I think this is one of those confusing marketing things that happens. And basically Disney Plus decided, hey, we got a movie coming out. It's part of the same franchise. We're just going to put the Mandalorian episode out early. Because remember, you probably didn't watch it because you didn't have time, but they also did a sneak preview of Rise of Skywalker as an extra.
Oh, I did because I wanted to. I was like going, okay, well, is this going to tell me how it ties in? Like, is this going to hit something to tie it in? But it has nothing to do with anything. It's just Poe Dameron. I mean, it wasn't a bad scene, but it was just. It's just like
that's arguable right there. That's arguable.
I mean, it's just talking, racing through a thing, fighting TIE fighters. But to me,
I don't know how many times do you want to watch Finn, manning the turrets of the Millennium Falcon, shooting at things? Didn't we see that in The Force Awakens?
Yeah, we did. But anyhow, the point being is that I was just kind of going, okay, well, this is just an advertisement for the film. This isn't tying into anything at all. This is just sort of like going, hey, you're liking this show, go watch our new movie. It has nothing.
That's what it felt like. Yeah,
watch your new movie.
So I haven't heard anything on that. As far as I know, there is no tie-in. I've always thought that the Baby Yoda is somehow going to be related to the resurrection of Palpatine. Now what I'm thinking is. What I'm kind of thinking is that it's a dead end. In other words, that was the intention,
right?
To somehow use the Yoda to resurrect Palpatine, but it's not going to work, and they're going to end up doing something else. And I have heard, by the way, that they do not explain Palpatine's situation well at all in Rise of Skywalker. That was a criticism that I heard. And it got into a little bit of like spoiler stuff, but basically they said, yeah, they didn't explain this at all. It's just kind of like Palpatine's just been sitting there the last 30 years,
Wow.
For reasons never fully explained,
Okay. Well,
but what I think will happen in the show is that that Yoda, the Baby Yoda, was intended for that. But I'm guessing that they're not going to be able to do that because of the Mandalorian's intervention.
Right.
Now, one thing that's interesting is they still have to get out of this bar, okay? They're completely surrounded by Imperials, including Death Troopers, all right? And they know, I mean, you can tell it by the way they're talking, they're not in a good situation. Okay?
Right.
So the question becomes, how the hell are they going to get out of there? And I think what's going to happen is that the IG unit's going to come and rescue them. What do you think?
Yeah. The IG unit has to show up and play a role, and and helping to spring them. That's for sure. Which, you know, if the show ends with Carl Weathers, the IG unit, Cara Dune, the Mandalorian, and the Baby Yoda as a new crew on his ship on the run from the Empire, that would make a fun season 2, because that's an interesting collection of characters. You know what I mean?
Oh, I would love that. If they decide to do that, I would love that. I mean, I'm disappointed that Quill won't be part of it. Quill is dead, which Quill appears to be dead. Because I really liked it. I that's what I was saying, is like, that was my favorite part of this episode, was like seeing all these different characters from all these different episodes coming together, because the IG unit was only in one episode, right?
Right.
Carl Weathers' character has been very underutilized, in my opinion. I think he's only really been in 3 episodes. Cara Dune was only in 1 episode prior to this, and you know, it's an episode I didn't particularly like all that much. So I think putting them together though was awesome, and Quill, I think, is a fan favorite already. Everybody's always quoting him. "I have spoken." You know, I see that all the time on Twitter.
Right.
You know,
right.
so he's already a fan favorite, and it is pretty bold. If they killed him, that is pretty bold. But he's actually the one we've seen the most of this group, besides the Mandalorian and the Baby Yoda. You know, he's at the most lines. So it'll be interesting to see how they go forward. I would love if that's how this ends up, is because I can see it coming. If they do get away with the Baby Yoda, but now the Mandalorian has his new crew, and they're going to go after the Baby Yoda, I think that would be a great way to end the season. But we'll see what they do. I think it's even possible they might kill the Baby Yoda. We'll see.
Oh, I hope not.
I mean, there's got to be a reason why we don't have any merchandise. I mean, why don't we have merchandise for Christmas for Baby Yoda? The people that don't like Baby Yoda, they all say, well, he's a cash grab. He's just for toys. There are no Baby Yoda toys. And and my kids are begging for it. I'm begging for it. I want a Baby Yoda, you know?
Right.
There's got to be a reason why there's no Baby Yoda toys, you know?
Right. So along those lines, if you would share my screen.
Hold on. There we go.
Okay. So Christmas is coming up, and I wanted to do something kind of fun and kind of special. Now the colors are different, okay, but I drew this up, and I had this fabricated as cut vinyl, so it's like a car decal, and the colors are completely different because this was my original idea, and it turned out to be way too complex, and we couldn't do it for a multitude of reasons. But anyhow, I do have a Mandalorian Baby Yoda cut vinyl thing I'm going to be sending to you for Christmas. So now, before anybody asks, there was not a lot of these produced. It was a very, very small run. I mean, we're talking like less than 5, and I'm not selling them. They're just for close friends, you know, Christmas gifts kind of thing. But I thought you would enjoy getting a kick out of this. And since we're talking about the Mandalorian, and we had, you know, 2 episodes we were covering, I thought it'd be kind of fun for people to see sort of my. It has to be highly simplified when you do cut vinyl. You know, you can't have a lot of detail. And I heard they were cursing me in the production department when they were weeding it, which is pulling the parts away you don't need, because the black part is basically would be like your window. But it's a takeoff of, if you've ever seen the Stormtrooper decal, it's like half the Stormtrooper. It's that kind of idea, but it's half the Mandalorian, and then we've got, you know, the Baby Yoda with him. So
that is perfect, man. That is awesome. That is freaking awesome. Seriously, that is like perfect. That is so cool. That is so cool. No, seriously, I'm speechless. That's really cool.
Cool. So, but I'm going to be. You may get a little bit after Christmas because I'm. Oh yeah, here comes Micah coming in. So now, this is my wife, Micah. I don't know why she's watching the show, but anyhow, I did originally produce this for Micah, and but I went ahead. We had to use a certain amount of material, and I was going, well, I know Eric would like one, and so we produced a very, very small run because otherwise this thing would have cost me a fortune. So anyhow, yeah, Micah got the first one. You'll be getting the second one, and but it's a very, very small run that we're doing. But when I was working on this, I was thinking, it's like, I bet Eric would like one of these too.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I love it. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really good. Gosh, it makes me feel like you need to pitch a Mandalorian comic book to Lucasfilm. You know.
Well, I'm sure.
Awesome.
Marvel and Disney and all these people have got that hopefully sewed up if they've got any sense already. But I'm not talking about with me on it.
I would not go with that assumption at all. Personally, I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't. And if they are, I'm willing to venture that it's not as good as this. This is really good. I mean, really, really good. It really captures the spirit too. Just the spirit of both characters, I think, is captured very well in this piece.
Yeah, it was fun.
So, no, I'm very honored. That's awesome. That is awesome. But it does lead me to say, why isn't there more stuff like this from Disney?
Well, and I sent you an image via text. Of course, I don't have that image to highlight here on the show, but I know that Entertainment Earth and other outlets, they do have some Baby Yoda merchandise that they're going to be rolling out at the beginning of the year. But it does seem like they were not really prepared for this character to take off in the way that they had thought. But along the same lines, there's not a lot of Mandalorian stuff out there either. I mean, I think there's a Mandalorian figure that's part of the Rise of Skywalker wave, I think, right now. But there's not
part of the Black series. That scale. Like I haven't. Yeah. They don't have the Mandalorian in the typical 3.5-inch scale. At least as far as I know, I can't find them. And I've looked online. All they have is that the black figures, which I think are like 6 inches. They're like 6 or 7 inches.
Right. Yeah.
They're more like that He-Man figure scale. They're in between scale.
Right. Well, and I have
much more detailed, much more expensive than the regular, like 3.5-inch figures. So they do have that for the Black series. In fact, we talked earlier. That's how I figured out that the Jawas weren't on Tatooine, was because I saw the Otherworld Jawas or something like that in the Black series.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what they're doing. That's why I'm saying when you assume that they have something in the works, I wouldn't assume that. I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't. This is I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Like that, it makes me speculate that maybe Yoda's going to die in the next episode. So if he does die, of course, that would also be like, well, what is the Mandalorian going to do?
Right.
Is he going to go like on a quest for vengeance? Is it just going to come down to that? I don't know. It'll be interesting. I do see. It seems like a natural development to me that they're going to get the Baby Yoda, they're going to whisk him away, and it's going to be up to the Mandalorian with his new team to go and find him.
Right.
That would be the most logical progression of the story in my mind. But we'll see. I mean, the show has surprised me. It has surprised me. I was surprised, I told you, with the Gunslinger episode where they killed the assassin.
Right, right.
That was shocking to me. And I was shocked in this last episode that the Moff ended up killing the Imperial Warlord. That's what I'll call him. I was like, what was that about? Why would he do that?
Right, right.
So we'll see. That there's at least I'm sure that it's going to be a cliffhanger. They're not going to resolve the story in this next episode. Whatever happens, it's going to be another cliffhanger. And I know you were you're a little irked about the way they ended this episode, and I understand why. There's people on the Twitter sphere that are going crazy about this, about how this last episode ended, because they were like, "Oh, come on, it can't end like that,"
Right, right.
But we have another episode, so
right.
It's not like we have to wait an entire season. Have you heard anything about when season 2 is supposed to come out?
No, I haven't heard anything. And one of the things about Disney Plus is that I I don't think they have anything ready to roll out once Mando finishes. I like none of the Marvel shows. Like I don't know of anything they have that's ready to kind of take its place. Because basically every week Disney Plus has a reason for us to go back and watch The Mandalorian and maybe watch something else while you're there.
Yeah.
Like for example, like with CBS All Access, since Discovery has been on hiatus between after season 2, I know that my wife watches Survivor on there, and occasionally I'll watch like the evening news or whatever. You know what I mean? But um, I don't really spend a lot of time on the CBS All Access app watching a lot of different stuff. And I've been having some issues with it lately too. Like I had Perry Mason on the other night, the original Perry Mason episodes. I was going to have those on while I was sitting and working, and the the app kept crashing or something. It was really weird.
Well, this was the first episode that I watched on my PlayStation 4 with Disney Plus.
Yeah.
This is the first episode I watched where I didn't have major hiccups, where it wasn't constantly stopping. There's this bug where the episodes would constantly stop and the audio would keep going.
Right.
And it also did this weird thing where it would like speed up for like 10 seconds, and you would literally lose like an entire scene.
Right.
And then it would speed up, and you lost the scene. You had to rewind it.
Yeah.
I didn't have that issue this last time, and I did notice there was an update. So I'm hoping that they finally fix that as far as with the PlayStation 4 app. But yeah, that kind of stuff is really annoying, and it can actually really take away your enjoyment of the show.
Right. For sure. But it's weird because I don't think they have anything ready to kind of take its place. There's not. I can't think of a single thing that like for example, like they made a big deal out of their new version of Lady and the Tramp. There's a new version of Lady and the Tramp we're rolling out with this new service, and there's the Jeff Goldblum show, and then there's the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian was obviously their big one, but and I have been watching the Jeff Goldblum one. My wife and I have, and we've been enjoying the Jeff Goldblum show too. But I don't think they have anything after Mando runs. Like it's not like Falcon and Winter Soldier is ready to take its place. I don't think. It's not like the What If series is ready to take its place. When you know what I mean, like when Mando ends, it's like what's next? Because I haven't heard of anything that's ready to go. Have you? They haven't been doing any promotion.
No, I haven't heard anything.
It makes me wonder, like, is Mando going to end and it's going to be several months before something new, you know what I mean, kind of takes its place? That's where, because as long as you have something new coming out weekly, I think you're good, because people will keep coming back to it and they'll be watching other things. But eventually it reaches that point where people go, well, I've seen all this stuff. And that's when people start thinking about canceling, So it'll be interesting to see how the Disney Plus service weathers Mando ending, because that's primarily what I've been coming to Disney Plus for is for the Mandalorian. So,
and you contrast that to Netflix, where Netflix, of course, is constantly coming out with new content.
Right. You just never know what the heck it is. You just turn it on and you go, "What's that?"
Right.
They don't really publicize it very good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's all right. So.
Yeah. Well, they're at that point where they feel like they don't need to do that. They have such a huge subscriber base that they feel no need to promote it. They know you're going to find it eventually. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
But I am curious what's going to happen in this, how they're going to wrap up this season. I just hope it's going to be satisfying. It's going to be good. I have the way that I would like it to go if it was up to me. But I'm hopeful that it's going to be a good strong ending. I've had some issues with this series as it's been going on and all that stuff, but right now I'm really stoked. I'm really feel like they can take us to a cool place. They're in a good position right now. I just hope they don't mess it up.
You know what could happen too?
What's that?
Well, the New Republic was just one step behind the Mandalorian in the last episode. I wonder what the chances are that New Republic forces could show up and see that these Imperial forces are amassed on this planet, and they're like, where the heck did these guys come from? Let's get them off this planet. And maybe maybe a rebel fleet will show up with a bunch of X-wings and stuff, and it's gonna be on. Man, that'd be cool. That would be cool.
Well, you know what's interesting? I actually did think about that. You know, I sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm getting too deep into this, but that's what I do. I mean, like I said, I'm a lore guy. That's what I do. I get deep into it. And one of the things I thought of when he was first sort of trying to deal with this problem was I kind of was like, well, why didn't he just do the same trick he did in the previous episode? Why didn't he just attract the New Republic forces to the planet?
Right.
Why didn't he do that? I mean, it worked with the guy on the space station, with the guys from the previous episode. Why couldn't he just do the same thing now that he knows that these guys are Imperials? Now that he knows there's a significant force of them, why not just get the New Republic to deal with them for him?
Well, and you never know. I was thinking there's also the possibility that Quill might actually not be totally dead. And he could.
He looked pretty dead to me. I mean, it's possible, but he looked pretty darn dead to me,
But he could always pull himself on board the ship, and he could call the New Republic and tell them what's happening, before his last gasp. You know what I mean? I don't know. I was just thinking about it because I've been wondering. I was like, how are they going to get out of this? And I'm like going, man, a whole bunch of X-Wings come screaming out of the sky, and all of a sudden things are, you know what I mean? Things are going to go sideways for that Imperial leader guy. So pretty quick. That might be fun.
I think the IG unit's going to come and rescue them. I think the IG unit's going to come and rescue them.
Yeah, he could be part of it. You know what's interesting?
I did want to say. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the character. I can't remember the actor's name because I remember him as being one of the major bad guys in Breaking Bad. He's the guy playing the Grand Moff. Did you notice his outfit? I mean, he's got a cape and everything, which reminded me of Krennic from Rogue One. But he's wearing what almost looks like a TIE fighter's pilot's outfit. What do you think the chances are he might be like some kind of a wing commander or something, and he could have some kind of like TIE fighter squadron with him or something above the planet that we haven't seen yet?
I thought it was interesting, and again, this is where I feel like, am I getting too into it? I thought it was interesting that he didn't come down in an Imperial shuttle. He came down in a TIE fighter.
Yeah.
That's not very Moffish to me, But I don't know how Favreau views that. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's not Moffish at all. If he's a Moff, he would have, like, a shuttle. Like the Emperor, like Tarkin, like Vader, Although Vader did have his own TIE fighter as well. But it doesn't seem to me that Moffs typically are very hands-on. You wouldn't think of them as being very hands-on,
Right.
So I like your explanation. That would actually make a lot of sense. If he's basically like a huge TIE fighter commander and essentially like this ace or whatever, that would make a lot of sense. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But at the same time, I mean, his armor isn't necessarily like that much different than what the generals wear in the field. Like if you remember The Empire Strikes Back and what the general, the Imperial general, because I just watched Empire Strikes Back the other day. The outfit that he wore, the armor similar. When he was on the AT-AT, he was commanding the assault on Hoth.
Right.
So there is a precedent for that as far as commanders wearing armor into battle and having sort of a different setup and a different look than obviously the troops, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So we'll see, but that would be really cool. I would really like that because I did wonder that when I was watching the episodes. Like, it's not very Moffish for him to be in a TIE fighter by himself,
Right.
But if he was like a wing commander, that would make a lot of sense, and that would be really cool. And if you caught the visual cue and that's what it is, that would also be really cool.
Yeah.
But I did want to mention each of these episodes have these like very small descriptions of the episode that we usually get before the episode comes out. We haven't really talked about them.
Right.
Like, for instance, the prisoners' little summary was the Mandalorian joins a crew of mercenaries on a dangerous mission. Very straightforward.
Right.
Chapter 7, this last episode, it was an old rival extends an invitation for the Mandalorian to make peace. By the way, when I first saw this, I was like, an old rival, and I didn't even think of Carl Weathers. So it's kind of funny how these things are very direct, but at least for me,
Right.
sometimes I don't get it. I wasn't thinking. I thought it was going to be like a new character. I didn't think of Carl Weathers. And then this one says for chapter 8, the Mandalorian comes face to face with an unexpected enemy.
Hmm.
So we could have another total it factor come in there. Now, here's the big thing that makes me, I think you know where I'm going. This is what I would love to see. This would be like my perfect thing. I would love that, like Boba Fett just to show up.
Right.
That would be the ultimate for me. If it turns out that was Boba Fett, because we still don't know who the person was over the body of the assassin.
Right.
We still haven't got anything to tell us who that was. And a lot of people were disappointed we didn't get anything in The Prisoner, in that episode about it. And we obviously didn't get anything in this one. Although I made the argument that I think it probably is the Moff.
Right.
But we didn't get anything definitive to say that. So, and this one says the Mandalorian comes face to face with an unexpected enemy. So that implies we're going to get one new character in this last episode. And obviously that will set up the second season. And if it was Boba Fett, that would be pretty cool, But
right.
We'll see.
I guess there is the always oddball possibility that, well, no, I'm grasping at straws. Yeah,
grasp. Come on.
No. I've speculated enough. Most of my speculation has been wrong. All I was thinking of is, what if, because we haven't seen a lot of the gangsters and stuff, and I keep lamenting the idea there's probably a lot of people that would love to have payback on the Imperials now that they're kind of a little on their heels, So I was just thinking in my head, it's like, well, if Boba Fett shows up, it would be interesting if Boba Fett shows up and he's, basically with essentially the gangsters, like, basically sort of like an army that's been assembled by the Hutts. You know what I mean? And they're who basically help wipe out these Imperials, and that's kind of how they escape. And maybe on his way out, trying to retrieve the child, Mando would come face to face with Boba Fett, and that would be interesting. It'd be interesting too because there's a lot of people that say that because Boba's a clone, he's not a real Mando. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, how would the Mandalorian react to that? Because it seems like the Mandalorian is also technically not either. He's, as far as we could tell, he's just a child that was orphaned that they took in. I don't know. I'm really curious.
It's actually very unclear how many actual Mandalorians are left. The implication is that there's hardly any of them, and that most of the Mandalorians are actually these. I forgot what the term was. We haven't heard it in a while. The foundlings. They are basically from other races and are adopted by the clan.
Right.
With going along the lines of what you're talking about, my brother had this really interesting idea, which was that because Boba Fett did work for the Imperials, that he is a total freelance and he has no loyalty to the clan at all, and actually has more loyalty to the guild than he does to the clan.
Right.
And that puts him in another kind of unique position. That he's kind of like the fact that he did work for the Imperials, could also make him sort of a marked man in his own right,
Right.
So he kind of just does his own thing. He had this idea of the Boba Fett being much more of a freelancer, that he wouldn't really care about the Mandalorians, but he might care about the guild.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm curious to see how it's going to all unfold, because one of the things that's been nice about the Mandalorian is it has been a lot of fun and a lot of new territory. A little bit of familiar territory here and there, but it's been a lot of fun to be in a Star Wars world with a story where you have no idea what may or may not happen. We do still have the oddball chance that not necessarily Luke, but you know what I mean. There are other forces, in the Rebel Alliance that we would be familiar with that we might recognize, but could still potentially pop up. And depending upon the scenario, they could confuse the Mandalorian as being a part of the Imperial forces. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how this all unfolds. So,
well, I did want to say, because we didn't really touch on this, but one thing that's kind of irked me and I thought is a little weird is they have this moment where the Baby Yoda is trying to help the Mandalorian with his arm wrestling match with Cara Dune.
yeah,
So it's a cool little scene, I think, because he basically thinks Cara Dune is hurting the Mandalorian, so he force chokes her, which I thought was really cool.
Right.
And I really like that. I got a big kick out of that. And so everybody's kind of like sitting there like, okay, what the hell's going on? And we found out that Quill used to work for the Empire.
Right.
And of course, Cara Dune was a rebel. So it really confuses me that nobody knows anything about the Force. Quill implied he did. Like, Quill was like, I've heard things that would kind of explain this. But I was like, okay, wait a second. Okay, if you worked for the Empire, you knew about the Emperor and you knew about Darth Vader. Okay, just plain and simple. Everybody knew about them.
Right.
Everybody knew about them. And then if Cara Dune, she would know about Luke Skywalker. I mean, there's no question she wouldn't know about Luke Skywalker. That's ridiculous. Rey knew about Luke Skywalker. Remember?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff that kind of irks me a little bit. It's kind of like, come on. So they don't know anything about the Force. And then, there's also the thing that people bring up, like even with Han Solo, it's like, in light of the prequels, it's like, okay, so there were Jedi like 20 years ago when you were growing up, but now you don't believe in them anymore. It's like not that much time has passed,
Right.
So, but that did irk me a little bit, because it's like, yeah, at least Quill kind of seemed like he had an idea. He didn't say it out loud, but he said, well, I've heard of things that would explain this, but he didn't elaborate. But Cara Dune is just like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, you worked for Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like, straight up. He was like the leader of the rebellion, They even say that in the beginning of Empire Strikes Back. So it's like, come on, So that I just want to say that does kind of irk me, and so I don't know if they would go in that direction to kind of shock them, and like we could have like a Force user, or like we speculated, maybe the beginnings of the Jedi Academy or something like that, which would be really cool.
That's my dream, that what happens in the next episode is that because Baby Yoda's been tapping into the Force, Luke knows he's there. The rebels are the ones that show up. They take out these Imperial guys, and Baby Yoda, and that could be the unexpected enemy that the Mando runs into. Luke could show up trying to find the child and whisk him away to the Jedi Academy to keep him safe, realizing, his connection to Yoda, right? And then the Mandalorian is like, you're not taking that kid, weird dude dressed in black with a lightsaber. You know what I mean? And that could be his unexpected enemy. Of course, he's going to lose. And, Baby Yoda's going to the Jedi Academy, but at least we don't have to watch him die. But anyhow, and at the end could be like, the Mando picks himself up and dusts himself off. And it's just like, this whole operation was nothing but a shitstorm. You know what I mean? And he gets in his ship and flies off, and next season, something totally different, So I don't know. It could be interesting. I'm curious to see how they're going to wrap it all up. But that's my dream, is that, Luke is the one who shows up and takes Baby Yoda to this new Jedi Academy. That's what I'm hoping for. So I think that's a pipe.
And I've mentioned, I think that's great, but you realize that with canon as it is now in Disney Wars, that would mean that Yoda is killed by the Knights of Ren when the temple's destroyed, or whatever, the new Jedi Academy is destroyed. So,
not necessarily. He might have escaped, just like Luke escaped. Pretty resourceful.
Luke didn't escape. Luke just ran off and hid somewhere or something. He wasn't there. Remember, he wasn't even there. I mean, that's how bad they made it. I mean, Luke wasn't even there when it happened. He came after the fact because he was probably goofing off, and he's an idiot and he sucks now. But that wasn't Luke. That was Jake Skywalker.
Right.
I maintain that. So.
All right.